see. Let's wait till this is going. Looks like it's going. All right, so I'm back. This has to be a short video. I got things to do. I am here because of events in the world. If you follow climate change much, then you know that the planet is warming. And one of the things we expect to have happen from that is that ice is going to melt. That's what happens. Most people, when they think about ice melting, they think about, Arctic ice will melt, or Antarctic ice will melt, or sea ice will melt, and these other things. And those are all important, and they have their own impacts. One of the things we almost never hear about or talk about or think about is that the ice on the mountains is also melting. These are often glaciers, and if they're not glaciers, then they're just ice caps or ice shields that are on the mountains. But those are melting too, and it's a big problem. It's a big problem for in India, or in particular Pakistan. Melt in the Himalayas has caused local, if you want to call it local, flooding. Pakistan ended up with what was it, 2/3 of their country underwater when there was a big rainfall event in the Himalayas, and the water and the rainfall melted the ice catastrophically and sent the floodwaters down into Pakistan, and that country was almost destroyed for a time. And for all we know, it was the flooding in Pakistan that just recently contributed to the war of Pakistan with India, because their leadership is under a lot of pressure because of the flood event. And now they're having to distract their people from the flood event by going to war with India. So that's a simplification of things, but we see, you're going to see a lot of this in the world. So I'm saying it now, that these flood events are not without consequence, and that the recent war of Pakistan with India, and I say Pakistan with India because it was Pakistan that attacked India, is probably because of that flood event, which happened fairly recently. So we're going to look at a video here about this event happening in the Swiss Alps. This is way, way beyond some kind of dramatic, ice fall or rock fall. You can find these on the internet all the time. Increasingly, this stuff is becoming of a magnitude that is really hard to comprehend. The magnitude of these events is similar to volcanic eruptions. There's so much ice and so much dirt and rock that comes down during these events that it has that kind of an impact on the regional community. So this ice, this is glacial ice. It's about half melted. It can't stay on the side of the mountain anymore, and so it just comes down. Also, the ice that's up in the tops of these mountains, some of that ice is acting like glue to hold together the rocks. And when the ice melts, not only do you get ice fall or glacial fall or glacial speeding up, you also get rock fall. And then the rock fall brings down more ice because it hits the ice and breaks it up and makes it move. So these things all kind of start to work together. This one is making the news because it's happening over a Swiss village called Blatten. Not a big village. I think there's less than 500 people live there. Picturesque. People say, in the comments, people are saying, I've been to Blatten. It's beautiful. It's probably a tourist attraction in the Swiss Alps, you can imagine. But now it's been evacuated. And this video I'm watching right here, which is 6 hours old, I've been watching this play out for about 3 days now. This video is saying that Blatten is now covered. I doubt that it is. They're probably being dramatic, but that is expected. The city, the village of Blatten will almost certainly be destroyed by these events that are now ramping up into an absolute cataclysm. Now, how long has Blatten been in the Alps? 800 years? Swiss Alps, villages in the Swiss Alps, right? They've been there forever, since the Middle Ages. So this hasn't been happening in Blatten up to now. And now it's happening. And it's happening rapidly. It is catastrophic. They've had to evacuate Blatten. And what I want to say about this is that as the ice melts around the planet, these types of events are going to become very, very common. They're going to become so common Ice fall like this, rock fall as the ice melts and the rock becomes unstuck. These kind of events are going to become really, really super common. And they're going to be so common that they'll even stop reporting on it. It'd be like, oh, rock falls, ice falls in the Swiss Alps. What else do you expect? Well, this is the end of the world for a lot of these people. And not just in the Swiss Alps, where there may be a village of 500. Pakistan is a highly populated country, and the floodwaters that came down from the Himalayan mountains, which was melting ice, was really devastating, heavily damaging, devastating. It may have destroyed the country, as far as we know. And like I said, triggered no doubt triggered their war with India. So eventually, these things have consequences. Now, this is the Swiss Alps. There's also the same mountain range. We have the Italian Alps. We have the Austrian Alps. And then there's large mountains all over Europe that can have this. And then, of course, there's the Himalayan mountains. And then there's the Rocky Mountains. And these sorts of events where high altitude ice is, however it's laid out up there, is melting, and it's bringing down the mountain. So that's the deal. Now, sometimes this will be happening in places where nobody lives, so you're not going to hear about it. So my guess is that for every one Blatten, for every one of these things that's impacting a village that people have visited or that live in, for every one of these, there's going to be 49 more that don't get any coverage of any kind. Simply no one will know. They simply won't know. And, that's going to be how this works out. That's how this plays out. But this is now a thing. If we were pretending that we have hundreds of years to worry about there being enough ice melt to cause a problem, it's happening now. If we thought there wouldn't be economic impacts from global heating for hundreds of years, well, that's no longer the case. We are totally now in the thick of it. The ice collapse in the Swiss Alps will probably just pick up speed. There will be more places involved. There'll be more ice and more rock coming down. And in many cases, they won't even get any warning. The villages won't be evacuated. Blatten has been evacuated for a week. There'll be places that don't get any warning at all. There will be just a big, ginormous rock slide, an ice slide, and it'll just come down. So this is what happens when you melt the permafrost, when you melt the glaciers, when you melt the ice, and that's just how it's going to be. In the Himalayan mountains, it'll probably take another form. There will be a big rock slide, and then the glaciers will melt, and the glacier water will collect behind the rock slide, because the rock slide is acting like a dam, and then the glacial water will rise, and it'll go over the dam, because it's just an earthen dam, a naturally created earthen dam, and then there'll be a huge wall of water that goes down the mountainside. So this is all global heating. What's happening in Blatten right now is 100% global heating. You don't have to do an attribution study. Blatten has been there for 800 years. The Swiss Alps have had these glaciers for millions of years. This is fossil ice, a lot of it, and certainly the ice at that elevation is a throwback from the last glacial maximum. So that's all melting. That's all going to melt. It's been melting for a long time, by the way. You go to any of these videos talking about this current destruction, and a lot of them will mention that the glaciers have been melting, the ice has been melting, this has been known, there have been floods, and now the mountain is coming down. So that's the progression. You get glacial melting, and then you get glacial floods, and then you get the mountain coming down. That's how it's going to progress. And that's going to happen everywhere at this point, everywhere. And 99 out of 100 of them, you'll know nothing about them because nobody's affected. There's no economic impact. It's not, there's no cell phone coverage of it. There's no helicopter coverage. No one's watching. No geologists are watching these things. They just come down and no one notices. But now this is what's happening all over the planet. And there's no stopping it. There's no way to stop this. The only thing you can do is evacuate the people if you get enough warning. And if the people are, I'll put this in scare quotes, important enough. Does anybody care about the people? Is anyone going to go up there and tell them you have to come down now? Because what's going to happen, and this is where I become somewhat conspiratorial, but this is human nature. I'm not really, off the reservation here. If you go up into these villages and you tell people, well, the mountain is going to come down, one, they won't believe you because it's never happened before. Two, if they believe you and they leave, how are they going to get out? The roads are like this, and they're this wide, and they don't even have conveyances, and they have donkeys and wooden wagons, and so how are they going to get out? Are you going to take them out with helicopters? Are you going to build a road up there just to bring them down for the final time ever? Of course you're not. So these people will not escape, or they will escape in tiny numbers, or they won't believe it because they don't even know what climate change and global heating is. And they'll just say, we've always lived here. Rocks have fallen, and we've survived, we rebuild, and they won't come down. And so they'll just die. They'll just die. And will anyone notice? Nope. Will anyone care? Well, sure, people will care, but what are you going to do about it? Nothing. So these are early days of doing nothing. These are the early days of making decisions on who lives and who dies. And we're seeing this play out right now in the U.S. Southeast. These horrible, these are like freight train storms. They call them training storms, where just one after the other, and it just doesn't stop. Training storms. Every 3 days they get a tremendous storm. Hail this big and lightning storm, setting fire to things, and then the tornado comes, and then the derecho comes, and then the wall of water comes, and every 3 days, and we're making decisions every single day. In the U.S. Southeast, we're making decisions every day not to tell people, not to evacuate them. Just let them figure it out. Come in later and we'll rebuild. Oh, except that if you call FEMA now, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, under the Trump administration, they're not even going to pick up the phone. Sarah Huckabee in Kentucky called Donald Trump and said, hey, Mr. President, we need some help down here in Kentucky. We're a red state. We voted Republican. He's going to pound sand. Hang up. He didn't send anybody. Maybe he changed his mind, but the news at the time was he didn't send anybody. These are sacrifice zones now. And Blatten in the Swiss Alps is getting a lot of coverage. They got the people out. They had a road. It's a tourist destination. They had a nice road. Of course, there's probably tour buses that go up and down there every day. So they had a nice road. They got the people out. There was even pictures of them airlifting the cattle out, the dairy cows, in helicopters. So, probably because they had no other way to get them out, because they don't normally transport their dairy out. The dairy live up there. They transport the milk out. And they transporting the milk out of these alpine villages. That's one type of vehicle. It's a truck. It's a tanker truck. It's got a big tank, stainless steel tank on it. And they milk the cows. They put the milk in the truck, and the cows stay in the milking parlor. And the truck with the milk goes down the mountain. The cows never go down the mountain. The cows are born in the hills. They grow up in the hills. They reproduce in the hills. And they die in the hills. They never come down. So on this occasion, they're like, well, we're evacuating the people. I guess we got to evacuate the cattle. And they're like, never done that. How do you do that? And so they had to figure it out. They brought in helicopters. That's how ill-prepared they are. They brought in helicopters to carry the cattle out. That's our situation now. Most places, they won't even bother. And I can guarantee you, in the U.S. Southeast, they're not going to bother. They're not going to get anybody out. There's 12 states down there that are in the crosshairs of global heating. They're not going to get them out. Oh, and by the way, it's not just the U.S. India has been in the news. 2 weeks ago, they had a heat wave, and 2 months ago, they predicted accelerating heat waves and 3 solid months of debilitating heat waves. And then, so they had 2 weeks of heat waves, and then about 3-4 days ago, they had the monsoon rains arrive and dump so much water on the central and southeast part of India that people couldn't even move around. Oh, and by the way, the monsoon rains came 2 weeks early. And you wouldn't know this. I only found out. They know to the day when the monsoon rains are going to show up. It's like, when is Christmas going to show up? December 25th. And when is the monsoon rains going to show up? June 11th. They know that. Because the Earth dynamic system is like a clock. It goes tick, tock, tick. And you know when it's going to talk. You know when it's going to tick. And June 11th, the monsoon rains are supposed to come. And nobody was ready. They came 2 weeks early. And they came like gangbusters. Massive flooding. One site said it was the worst flooding in 79 years, and another site said it was the worst flooding in 140 years. So they've all got different opinions. There's also different parts of India. It's a big country. But anyway, record-breaking rains. Worst rains since before partitioning. And before that, a couple years before that, Pakistan got flooded. So this is now a thing. Now that's just monsoon rains. The Himalayas are right there. And who knows what's going to happen in the rest of the Swiss Alps. We're already projecting the hottest summer ever on record, right? And what happens? What's the rule? Every year is hotter than the year before at this point. And that year, last year, was hotter than the year before that. And if you look back 10 years, you'll notice that 9 of the hottest years in history are in the last 10 years. And if you go forward 10 years, you're going to look back and you're going to say, yeah, now it's 2035, and if you look back 10 years, 9 of the hottest years in history have been in this 10 years. Every 10 years, you're going to have the hottest years on record. Every 10 years is going to be the hottest 10 years on record. And what do you think that's going to do? What do you think that's going to do? It's going to melt the ice, and everything is going to melt. And it's going to be water coming down the mountain. It's going to be ice coming down the mountain as it melts, and it's going to bring the rocks with it. And everyone's going to get bulldozed, and everyone's going to be rolled over, and all the rivers and are going to flood, and all the cities are going to be wiped out. And that's just how it's going to be. That's it. That's it. That's it now. That doesn't stop. There's no way for that to not happen, and there's no way for that to stop. And people are still running around talking about, well, we need to take climate action. Whatever the fuck that is, you can't even tell me what that means. And we need to innovate, and we need to do this. Meanwhile, the damage is being done. The world is falling down around our head, and they're still talking about taking climate action. They're still talking about net neutral. And they're going to talk about carbon taxes. They're going to talk about this and that. And meanwhile, the planet is falling down on our heads now. That's what's happening. It's happening. Those people will never return to the village of Blatton. They will never return. And it's a good thing they got their cows out, because the village of Blatton, sometime in the next, 48 hours, will be completely bulldozed. You'll be able to see it from a helicopter, but it's just going to be rubble under rocks and ice, and then the ice melts. Because I guess you can't have ice anymore in the Swiss Alps. And that brings the rocks down. Because it was the ice that was holding the rocks up. Like glue. The Swiss Alps are coming unglued. The Swiss Alps are coming unglued. As will the Himalayan mountains. As will the Rocky Mountains. As will everywhere else. Because the ice is going away. It is going away. And it's not coming back. It will never come back. This is now a terminal situation. The ice in the Swiss Alps will disappear, and it will never come back. Because next year is going to be even hotter than this year. And at some point, all the ice in the Swiss Alps is going to melt all at once. It might even melt in a single year. It's just going to get to a threshold, and it's all going to go. And that means all these rocks come down all at once. And do they have enough helicopters in Switzerland to airlift all the dairy cattle out of all the villages all on the same day? Or even within the same few weeks? No. Do they have enough buses to get all the people out of all the alpine villages in the Swiss Alps all in the same month? No, they don't. And so we're going to have this calamity where there's enough places that didn't get the service they needed, didn't get the attention they needed exactly when they needed it, and there's going to be 500 people killed in 20 seconds when the mountain comes down. And we've decided that's okay. We've decided that's okay. It'll just be something for the news. We'll all be terrified, and we'll all shed a tear for the cows or the people or the whatever, the combination of the two. And then we'll all go on about our business. Because we can't be bothered to give two fucks about it. And even if we did, and even if this was the defining event where people suddenly stood up from their dinner table and stood up, took the napkin out of their front of their shirt and said, "That's it. I am done with this. I am done with climate change. I'm done with global heating. We have to do something about this right now. We're not going to have any more of these events." That's meaningless. We're in the thick of it now. You can jump up, rip the napkin out of your shirt and stomp around, and I'm done with this. We're going to fix this. No, you're not. You're not fixing shit. You're not fixing anything at this point. There's nothing you can do. The mountains are coming down. The ice is melting. That's it. That's it. The time you could have, maybe, the time you could have done anything about this would have been 70 years ago. When the energy industries, in particular, the crude oil companies, were deciding that, oh yeah, this is real. And they went out and convinced all the elected politicians for 3 generations that it was nothing to worry about. They knew it was real. And they went out, they sent all their lobbyists out, their armies, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of representatives into all the government representations and bought politicians and funding their campaigns and going into with the suitcases full of money and giving it away to all the people they want to think the way they want them to think. And that was 70 years ago they were doing that. Why were they doing that 70 years ago? Why were they trying to convince us that Al Gore was taking drugs? Why? Because it was all true. If it wasn't true, they wouldn't have been doing it. And now all we can talk about is, oh, it's climate change. The climate's always changing, and we'll do net neutral or net zero carbon emissions, and we'll innovate, and we'll do carbon removal, and we'll do this and we'll do that. And we'll do efficiency, and we'll have electric cars, and that's going to solve the problem. No, the Swiss Alps are crumbling. Pakistan will flood again. The heat waves are going to be lethal, 100% lethal. Entire villages are going to die. Entire countries like Pakistan and India and Afghanistan and probably all of North Africa and probably half of North America, it's going to become uninhabitable. That's now on the table. That cannot be avoided. That's what we're headed into. And it's just starting now. And it's the village of Blatton today. And it'll be 50 other villages before the end of the summer. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. I don't really care what the part per million is in the atmosphere of CO2. I don't really care how much fossil fuels we're consuming or gas, we're extracting. It goes up every year. But I don't really care anymore what the number is. And I don't really care how hot the oceans are getting. And I don't want to hear about 1.5 degrees C above baseline. And I don't want to hear about 2 degrees above baseline. And I don't want to hear about this crap anymore. The planet is done with us. It can't stay the way it is. It's now going to change. And it's falling on our head. And you don't need to know any of this science anymore. Oh, they'll keep doing science. They'll keep funding science because as long as they can fund the science at some level, then they can say, well, we'll continue to study it. I mean, at this point, funding climate science is just another way of telling people, don't worry, we're still monitoring the situation. You just go to work and go to school and, you drive and fly and travel and go and, eat out. And don't worry about it. The adults are working on this. You just don't live your life. They have to keep doing the climate science and you have to keep consuming the climate science. That prevents you from worrying about what's happening in Blatton. Am I right? Of course I'm right. There's no stopping this. Go ahead, buy an electric car. There's no stopping this. Go ahead, reduce your fossil fuel consumption. Go ahead, take one less trip to Disneyland this year. There's no stopping this. We can't stop this. For one thing, it's already happening. We could have had the conversation of, well, we should stop this 70 years ago, maybe 100 years ago. We could have had this conversation. We didn't. Nothing changes now. Nothing. It's impossible to put that ice back on the Swiss Alps. It defies physics to even think you're going to do that. It's done. It's coming down. The mountains are coming down. The floods are coming. The parts of the planet that are going to be uninhabitable will be uninhabitable. That's a fact. And probably, I don't know this as a fact, but I'm going to go ahead and say it because it probably is a fact. We're going straight to 4 degrees C above baseline. And we'll go through 2 and 2.5 and 3 and 3.5. And every time we go through another level of disruption, people will say, well, it'll stop. We'll stop this. We'll do something. We'll change things. Going through 2.0 degrees C is not the end of the world. You'll see it'll be fine. It's really 3. Well, now we're going through 3, but don't worry, it'll be fine. That's the game we're going to play. And I'm going to play it, and you're going to play it, except I'm not going to play it. Because I'm not here to play games. We're screwed. The people in Blatten are never going home. Never. And the people that die in floods and heat and from heat stroke during heat waves, they're not ever coming back. And the refugees who leave these places, including starting with Blatten, right? They left. They're not going back. The people, they're never going back. When these people leave these places, they are never going back. And when it's 400 people and their cattle, maybe it's not a big deal. But when it's 500,000, then it's a big deal. And it becomes a disruption. And they become refugees and they're living in tent cities. Oh, and they don't have air conditioning. So when the heat wave comes again, now they're living in a tent city with no air conditioning. They die. They die. They die. And, you could have 1 million dead bodies after a big heat wave. You could. This could happen even in Southern California. You could have a heat wave hit Southern California and a commensurate electrical outage, which would pretty much follow A-B, okay? You have a huge heat wave that lasts a week. Day 1, everyone turns their air conditioning on. Day 2, the power fails. And then on day 3, they send out all of their technicians and trouble people to try and fix the electricity. And it comes on here, it comes on there. But pretty soon, they can't even be effective anymore. And so the power stays off. And after day 3, day 4, day 5, all of a sudden you have 1 million dead people from the heat. And the lack of water and whatever else happens. And probably the riots and probably the looting, right? You know how people are. People always panic. They don't know what to do. They're going to blame somebody. They're angry. They're hot. They're scared. They're blaming people. They start stealing things and shooting each other. And pretty soon you've got 1 million people dead. Not fiction. Absolutely guaranteed. And it's starting in the Swiss Alps, starting with the community of Blatten. And all the other hundreds of communities that you'll never hear about. We're hearing about this one. And the pictures of the cattle, the pretty cattle. And the pictures of the pretty people being evacuated in the pretty town of Blatten, all picturesque and, tourist attraction. And yeah, they're done. They're done. You're not going back there. No one's going back there except in a helicopter to see the wreckage. Oh, this was Blatten. Yeah, they'll have tours. They'll have disaster capitalism in operation. Overflight tours of the villages in the Swiss Alps that have been buried under rocks and ice as the Swiss Alps collapse and fall around their head. This is not a one-off. This is just the beginning. And it's been going for a while. And it's only going to get worse. You don't need to know about the science of climate change. You don't need to have climate scientists. You really don't. You really don't need climate scientists. I'm saying that as a climate scientist, okay? You don't need climate scientists. You don't need climate science. You don't need more data. The Swiss Alps are collapsing. Pakistan was flooded. India just had a heat wave followed by a flood. And the U.S. Southeast is becoming rapidly uninhabitable. Just watch the headlines. That's all I'm doing. Watch the headlines and you'll know everything you need to know. So that's it for me. I've got other things to do. Thank you for being here. Like the video, subscribe. I read earlier an episode out of my novel, which kind of covers some of this stuff. I wrote the novel because I know what's coming. So I'm doing some editing, and I'll be reading another episode real soon. And then shortly after I get through all of that, it's 250 pages, so it'll take a little while. Then I'll publish it on probably Amazon Publishing, and it'll be available for cheap. And I hope you enjoy it if you pick it up. But this is all for me today, and now I have to go work on my basement, which is also my my shelter. And yeah, we're all going to need shelter. That's how it's going to be.